This is Digital Marketing Depot broadcasting live. I'm Karen Burka, your webcast producer. Thank you for joining us today for Personalized Local Content, Frightful or Insightful. We are very pleased to welcome Mary Bowling, co-founder at Igniter Digital, Brandon Fleming, SEO SEM Marketing Manager at Protection One ADT, and Cynthia Sainer, VP of Operations and Product at Rio SEO. Before I turn things over to our speakers, I want to tell all of you a couple of things. If you need some help or have a question for our speakers, just use the Ask a Question box, and we will do our best to help you. If you want to tell a friend, check out our sponsor, Rio SEO, or Digital Marketing Depot. There are some widgets at the bottom of your screen. Just click on them, and they will take you where you want to go. The hashtag for today is DMDWC. We are going to hear a lot of great content, so I wanted to let you know we are recording this broadcast, and we will make it available for viewing on demand this afternoon. I'll send an email when it's ready, or you can check our website, www.digitalmarketingdepot.com. Now, with that business taken care of, let me formally introduce our speakers. Mary Bowling, co-founder of Igniter Digital, has been involved in all aspects of SEO since 2003. Mary is an SEO practitioner and consultant and speaks on local search at industry conferences including SMX, PubCon, MozCon, MozLocal, LocalU, and SearchFest. Brandon Fleming, SEO SEM Marketing Manager at Protection One ADT, has overseen SEO and SEM for Protection One since 2011 and for ADT since September 2016. An experienced affiliate marketer, Brandon has been practicing SEO since 1996 and launched his first web design development and SEO company when he was just 18 years old. Cynthia Sainer, VP of Operations and Product at Rio SEO, has more than 2 decades of expertise in world-class organizations, including Axiom, DataQuick, Z57, and Solitube International. She has a unique combination of experience across mobile app development, social technology, and big data. Audience, you can see complete bios for our speakers on the left side of your audience console. Now, we've got a great panel lined up, so if you have questions for our industry experts, make good use of that Ask a Question box. I'll get to as many of those questions live after the formal presentation. And with that, I will turn the broadcast over to Mary Bowling to get us started. Mary, there's your first slide.
Thank you, Karen. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate you joining us today. I'd like to start by briefly talking about the basis of search. The results that a search engine presents have to continually please searchers or people won't use it. That's why we're always hearing the recommendation to optimize for the searchers, because the search engines really want to reward the websites with better rankings when they make searchers happy. And if you compare the fall of Alta Vista, which was the primo search engine of its day, with the rise of Google in the early 2000s, it's a dramatic way to see how the best results drive the most searchers to a search engine. Google has always intended local search to be a way of discovering what's around you. Googlers talk about it as modeling the real world, and Google moves us from global results to localized results when it believes it's appropriate. Think about it. Google doesn't want to show us the businesses with the best SEO companies. It wants to show us the businesses that are the most popular, most liked, and most prominent within their own local areas. But for many years, its local algorithm was so primitive that it was quite easy to game it. But now, in 2016, the local algorithms have become quite sophisticated. And the proxies that Google is looking at for popularity and prominence are becoming better and better all the time. Now Google can get down to the neighborhood level to show us the most prominent businesses within that area. The photo on the right here shows the railroad station in the little town that I live in, Glenwood Springs, Colorado. And Google doesn't just know about the train station and what it looks like on the inside and the outside. It also knows there's a popular model train museum inside of it, that the Hotel Denver is across the street, that both adults and kids think this is a pretty cool place, that rafting is a very popular activity in the area. The rafters go right by the front of the train station. And Google even knows that People use this train to come skiing and snowboarding in our valley, and in many cases it even knows who the people are that work at the station and on the train. That's a pretty good model of the real world, and Google can localize its search results around that model. So what we need to do is make sure we give Google the information it needs to know when our business is the relevant answer for a local search query. And one of the best ways to do that is by localizing the content on our websites. What exactly do we mean by localization? I find this definition to be a pretty good one. The aim of localization is to give a product the look and feel of having been created specifically for a target market, no matter their language, culture, or location. So think about what searchers generally want to know about a local business. Specifically, what do they want to know about a business like yours in your location? What information is most useful for them? That's what we want to give them with our websites. A lot of them are just looking for the facts. They want to know where you are, if you serve their area or not, how they can get in contact with you, or how to actually get directions to your location. A lot of them are also interested in knowing what people think about a company and what their experiences with it have been. They can see these opinions in the search results in the form of reviews and rating stars, but it's also useful if they can see honest opinions on your own website. Many of them may also want to see the business. They want to be able to recognize it from the outside as they approach it. Or they might want to get an idea of the ambiance or the cleanliness or what kind of facilities they have. They might want to take a look at your services and products. So make sure you're providing that type of information for them. And for many types of businesses, people are interested in what the experience is like at that location. For this Italian restaurant, they may want to know if it offers family-style service, or if they have menu items that kids are going to be thrilled with, or even if you can sit outside on the mall and watch people as you're dining. So this is the kind of information that you want to make sure you're providing on your website. For other types of businesses, potential customers are really looking for clues as to the trustworthy of the business and the people of the business. How experienced are they? Are the employees bonded? What are their guarantees? Are they licensed? Are they active in the community? These are all things that you should be telling searchers and the search engines. And sometimes searchers are looking for ways to save money. They ask Google for coupon sales, discounts, promo codes, if a particular business has a loyalty program or not. And if Google knows the answer, it will give it to them. So we have to make sure we're providing Google with these answers on our websites and in our listings so that it can in turn provide those answers to searchers in the search results. And for some types of businesses, searchers are quite curious about the people involved, and for good reason. So make sure you're providing them with that information. Local is very, very personal. When you're looking for a doctor to use lasers on your eyeballs, like Dr. Solomon on the left here, you want to check out his experience and credentials. You want to make sure that other people have good experience with him. And if you're arranging home health care for your grandmother, it's nice to be able to show her the photo of the person who's actually going to be visiting her and what the car that they'll be driving is going to look like. So try to make these connections for searchers and search engines on your website. In fact, a lot of local businesses fall into Google's Your Money or Your Life category, and these websites are held to a very high standard. Google says in its Search Quality Evaluator guidelines, we have very high page quality rating standards for your money or your life pages, because low quality pages could potentially negatively impact users' happiness, health, or financial stability. And it's not just doctors, accountants, and lawyers whose services can have a profound impact on our lives. We also rely on people like roofers and babysitters and auto mechanics to take care of us and our stuff and our families. And the quality of their products and services can have a significant impact on our lives. So don't assume that your business is not in your money or your life category and that doesn't need to have a high quality website. These guidelines, which I highly recommend everyone looks through, although you may need to do it in several sessions because they're not exactly exciting, but they tell us that Google's interested in the expertise, authority, and trustworthiness of the content on a site. And they determine that by looking at the quality and quantity of the main content, if there's transparency about the business on the website, and what the reputation of the website and the business that it represents is. And for bigger brands, Google specifically says it has higher expectations. It flat out says we expect websites of large companies and organizations to put a great deal of effort into creating a good user experience. Do not forget that Google keeps raising the bar on content quality and that we have to keep working to try to keep up with this. Enterprise outfits generally have some built-in advantages over small local business websites. Their sites are generally larger. They have good potential ranking power. Most of them also have professional web developers and dedicated marketers, and they're working with much bigger budgets than small local companies. They also seem to get many more opportunities for links, which is an important factor in ranking well. But all of these native advantages just fly out the window if they don't get their store locator right. We generally see three types of store locator interfaces on enterprise sites. The store finder type, like the one at the top, people can put in their city or zip code and the site returns the location. But the results from these types of locations are often dynamic and they're not very useful to the search engines. The example in the middle, which is a drill down map, is also good for searchers, especially if they're traveling and don't know the local zip codes. But again, they're not very good for search engines. Placing text links on your site is exactly what you want to do for the search engines. This makes it very easy for them to see all of these pages and to get down through your site. In this example, Roto-Rooter has all three ways of finding locations on its site. Some of the things that you want to make sure that you build into your location directory, you want it to be visible on all the pages of your site. You want to make sure that you can push page authority down to local pages to help them rank. It has to be easy for humans to use or they're not going to use it. It should have a logical hierarchical structure with plenty of internal text linking. Make sure that you have accurate, up-to-date XML sitemaps, that you're optimizing your pages, and that you're using schema markup wherever you can on your pages. And don't make it hard for people to find your locations. And don't deprive the location landing pages in your store directory from getting the authority they need to rank well. In this example, the store locator is hard to find on the pages. It's buried among a lot of other things, and there are dozens and dozens, maybe even hundreds of links on these pages that are taking page authority that might be better used to help the locations rank. It's best to have a directory structure that's simple, logical, and hierarchical that represents all your locations. And make sure that you have a lot of copious internal linking. Link the state pages to the pages of nearby states, the city pages to the pages of nearby cities, and so on. This not only helps users move around your site, but it makes it super crawlable for the search engines. And when you get the directory right on a powerful brand website, many, if not most, of your local operators are going to benefit from higher rankings. This additional visibility enables more new leads to come in to the local stores and offices, and corporate gets to take credit for it, the corporate website. So when a brand's website does a good job of ranking for all its locations, the local operators are less likely to create competing websites because they don't feel the need to do so. It relieves them of the responsibility of having their own site, of having very much technical expertise, and it allows them to devote their efforts to helping you localize the content on their page on your brand website rather than trying to maintain their own website for themselves. And for the brand, it gives you much better control, not only of the data about your locations, but the brand messaging and having a consistent look and feel across all of the brand materials on the web. And gaining more leads for your local operators is going to increase their loyalty and their confidence in you being able to help them market their businesses locally. Having an awesome website that ranks well for a lot of locations also makes it easier for the brand to do more cool things, especially things that local operators wouldn't do on their own. But they get the benefit of them when they're on the brand website. And localization is just one aspect of personalization. Here are a few of the ways our web experiences are already being widely personalized. Things like retargeted ads, Google Now cards on our mobile phones, and in-store beacons that our mobile phones communicate with. So in the next section, we're going to get deeper into personalization. But first, we'll have a survey for our listeners. Over to you, Karen.
Great. Thank you, Mary. Gosh, that was a lot of great information. Audience, I know about you, but I am frantically taking notes on everything Mary just said. But as she just alluded to, we're seeing personalization, we're seeing new technologies. We want to sort of find out from you where you're at on voice search. So our first poll question is your business currently focusing on voice search? And our three choices are frequently, rarely, or never. So while you think about that, I just want to remind you that if you have a question for our expert panel today, please go ahead and use the question box and get those in. So we will have time at the end of the formal presentations to get to some of those questions. So as I roll over to the results, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Brandon Fleming from Protection One ADT. So Brandon, it looks like our audience, we've got a little over half who have never used or are not focusing on voice search, which tells me that's why they're here today. They want to learn much more about personalization and some of these new technologies. So that probably gives us a good path to go on.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you all for joining us today. It's definitely no surprise to see that there is a very low response to the focus around voice search, because what we're seeing is that's really just on the rise. So it's definitely important, to Mary's point, to make sure that we're doing all the right things to make sure that our partners at the search engines are able to help customers find us when they're starting to look in different forms using different technologies. So when you're ready, we'll go ahead and jump into the next slide and talk about the goals of personalization for us. So like Mary talked about, it's really important to do kind of all the big and small aspects of optimizing your website experience. But really what I want to talk about is focusing on the goals of personalization and what that looks like for larger national brands, whether you are fully corporately owned or you're supporting local dealers and franchisees. So for us at ADP and Protection One, our real goal of personalization for our users is primarily to drive a reduction of friction. We want to remain relevant. As you can see, that's something that Google works so steadily on to make sure that the user experience is always just the best. And then naturally, being in business, we want to drive growth. So these three things are what drive every decision that we make when it comes to developing our user experiences and improving that and personalizing that in ways that we feel make our users safe but provide convenience to them. So moving on to the next slide, some of the challenges that we also face, though equally being able to leverage the strengths of a national brand, are that oftentimes we aren't necessarily seen as doing business locally. And sometimes some might even ask, are you taking away business from our local economies? And the answer really is no. The truth is that we are part of the local economy. We just happen to be a large network of local businesses. So one of the things that we see as local or national brands, is the challenge of managing and maintaining a hyper-local experience across hundreds or, in some cases, thousands of instances, but this isn't entirely an impossible situation to manage. A few examples of the ways that consumers might see a national brand with a disadvantage are being out of reach. In some cases, you're just too far away. They might feel that you're out of touch or that you're irrelevant to what's going on in their local communities, that you're too centralized because you don't really have the ability to connect with what's going on in local economies, and to really just get to the point, like you're too big. I don't know if you've all heard that, but I've definitely heard people say that. And, you know, it's one of those things that it's a catch-22 because in growing big, you're able to do things better. You're able to provide a more broad set of support tools and systems, and to really lean on your local offices to help one another. And but at the same time, you know, you're seen differently. So, you know, and again, as I mentioned earlier, you know, they sometimes can see you as not supporting the local economy. But the truth is that as national brands with locations throughout the country, you're actually very reachable because that is the situation you're in. You have the ability to provide service to them wherever they go, wherever they live. And we love that at ADT and Protection One because we can help serve families that live hundreds or sometimes thousands of miles apart with the same peace of mind that we provide. We are very relevant because we have tens of thousands of employees located in hundreds of locations that are very aware of the needs in the local markets. And because of that being locally based and supported, we have the stability that in some cases other businesses cannot provide. I wouldn't call that a disadvantage of being a local small business, but just speaking about from the position of a national brand, that is something that we get to do for our customers. So we do add that kind of layer of stability and support, and definitely support the local economy because we're creating jobs. So on the next slide, you can kind of get a visualization of how sometimes national brands are seen different than local businesses that consumers identify with as just being a local company. The goal in the various optimization tactics that we can employ to not only personalize but localize our websites and our content and our information on and off site is to get users to see us for truly what we are and how we're made up. And in this particular case with our business, while we are seen as a large national brand, the fact is that we are based locally throughout cities across America. And so our goal as marketers is to help message that to all of those individual buyers and consumers so that they can recognize the fact that, you know, we are a national network, but at the same time, we're your neighbor. And those things are equally important to us because the national side of it allows us to have brand recognition, and on the local side, it allows us to actually be in touch. And the fact is that being based locally allows our company to grow at the right pace in the different markets so that we don't oversaturate or outpace ourselves and create unhealthy business models. But it does allow us to support the means that are available to us in each local area. So I think that's really, really important. So as you take your national brand and you break it down to local economies, it's really important to remember that by doing that, you're able to actually create jobs in the areas that are needed and not necessarily come in and push out the competition. An example I wanted to provide, just kind of highlighting how personalization at scale can work, because it is definitely a question we all ask, is does it work? 56% of consumers using Amazon have demonstrated an understanding of their individual preferences. They actually like that. So it's something that is widely accepted. We all really want the convenience. There's definitely some questions out there as to how to do personalization in a way that's safe for user data and that protects businesses. So we're going to go into a few examples of digital personalization that may not necessarily involve personally identifiable information, but can give a hyper-local, hyper-personalized experience using commonly available tools and information on websites. So in the case of Amazon, they use product recommendations. In your business or ours, there's various little things we can do on our websites to provide a more personalized experience. A very simple example of this is that remember me checkbox next to logins. I don't think any of us like to have to do the username and password over and over and over. So I think that's just the very, very first step in allowing a website to remember who you are and to sort of signal that, hey, we know you. Additional opportunities for different types of businesses can include providing nearby location information, product recommendations if you sell products, personalized customer service content. What I mean by this is if there are specific things that you can bubble up to the top of your customer support experience that is going to make a user happier and save them time. Again, this is just one idea of how you can make the user experience better, shorten their journey to the answer. Ultimately, we see that that's what Google's goal seems to be in providing more convenience and personalization as they improve their service. Provide relevant advertising through pixeling users anonymously. So again, their information is kept private, but you are able to provide relevant recommendations and advertising to them. And then, of course, social media content is another great way to provide personalized pieces based on expressed interests as users visit different areas of your websites. Now, just kind of jumping into the specifics of Protection 1 and ADT, in our particular industry dealing with safety and property protection and security services, some of the things that we found we are able to localize, since we're not necessarily a retail storefront, are to localize maps and directions to service areas just to make it more convenient and easy for customers to find the areas that we do provide coverage in. Of course, in some businesses, inventory. In our particular case, we're not doing e-commerce, but we are able to provide examples of the types of products that we provide to users in different areas. Of course, pricing is very important to customers. I think even if there's not an e-commerce opportunity to transact online, it's equally important for them to be able to do their research online. And so providing that level of kind of personalization, if your prices vary by market, being able to highlight that to them, it sets the right expectation and lets them know that you can be trusted as an optional provider for them. Additional content are local reviews, which definitely help with reputation management and local phone versus a toll-free number. Toll-free numbers are definitely very commonly used for tracking and for convenience, but I think we all pretty much have free local and long distance now. So I don't think users are as concerned about whether the call is free as much as whether you appear to be in their area. So definitely using local contact information is great. Displaying your office address, even for us, we definitely are happy if one of our customers wants to stop by and ask questions, but it's not typically the case. But we still post our location information and make it easy for them to find us if that's how they want to contact us. The last piece is local content that's relevant to your business. In our particular case, we have crime data and safety statistics that are relevant to different areas of the country. And then going beyond SEO and digital, again, it's important to leverage local content and data that will help your team win. So an example for us is if we have a field sales force out on the doors speaking with consumers and businesses about our products and services, it's very convenient for them to be able to pull up our website, very easily show the data. And I think that that's something that could apply to many businesses out there. So just think about ways that you can leverage your website and your data and really your localization beyond the website, beyond organic or paid traffic. Look at how you can kind of convert your website into a tool, sales and support tool for your teams. Another opportunity is in retention situations where customers are considering competitors. Again, it's very important to be able to highlight where you stand out, how you meet needs, and really just kind of reminding them why they came to you in the first place. The last few bullets just highlight social and paid media. Definitely feel like there's a great opportunity to amplify your localization and personalization of content through external channels such as social media. It's great because you have the ability to specifically target users based on geography. The same thing with paid advertising in search engines. And it really not only kind of allows you to make your spend more efficient, but I feel like for the user, it's a consideration that they see you're making for them. So you're not just throwing something generic in front of them, but you're speaking directly to them where they're at with local relevant services and information. And then the last, of course, is just to ensure that you're including your localized content in any paid media landing page experiences. So if you have more of a siloed structure where your marketing team runs separate channels and they have their independent landing pages, where possible, if they're targeting local areas, be sure to include your office, your store location information, or for us, local statistics about the community. And don't be afraid to go beyond the reach of just what applies to your business. I love the example earlier, and I love seeing hotels, for instance, provide things to do in the area. It's about thinking about your consumer, your prospect, your customer, and how you can better serve them and how you can anticipate their needs. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass that back over to Karen.
Great. Thank you, Brandon. Great information from an actual brand marketer's perspective. So that was very, very useful. So audience, our next poll question for you is, now that we've heard about local content and how to personalize your local content, we want to gauge where you're at on your efforts. So the question is, do you personalize your content on your local landing pages? And again, the choices are yes, often, or maybe yes, rarely, or never. You're not quite at that point yet. So while I give you a couple of seconds to think about your answer, remember that our 3 panelists will be available towards the end of the webcast to take your questions. So keep sending them in. We've got a few already. Hopefully we'll get to as many of them as we can, and you'll get your answers. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at our results as I bring in our third speaker, Cynthia Sainer. Often, so Cynthia, that's probably music to Rio SEO's ears, but so we've got 2/3 of our audience say that they are already personalizing content on their local pages. So we've got a forward-thinking audience that's probably, like I am, rapidly taking notes of everything that's been said so far.
Thanks. Well, that's good to hear that people are looking at how to personalize that content on local landing pages, and this is going to only grow in its priority, both for small businesses, but also really for enterprise, as those expectations are to have localization at scale, right? You want to have engaging local content so that consumers feel like you are a part of that community, even if maybe you're doing that from a remote location at corporate headquarters. You still need to have that very personalized local content. And the reason for that is, some of these stats are probably things we're all familiar with, but it's always a good reminder as to how connected our consumers are becoming and why personalization and localization is so critical. Because as smartphones are becoming the option of choice, 80% of people are using a smartphone. People are using multiple devices, but you actually have people that are only on a smartphone at this point. 27% are claiming to only use a smartphone when doing searches. And so that importance to be connected is becoming more and more critical, yet you can't leave behind that 14% laggard community that is still only using a computer. So it create some complexities for businesses to be sure that we can deliver up content however the consumer wants that to be done. The good news, though, is that we need to be really looking at how we feed that up for those users because they're looking for loyalty. So the challenge is on the negative side, of course, if you're not delivering content to that mobile consumer, Google's now saying that 61% of users are unlikely to return if they're having trouble accessing or if the information isn't delivered in a simple way. And worse is that actually most of them, 40%, will actually then go to a competitor's site instead because the reason being they had local intent, they were looking for an answer. If they didn't get it from your site, they will go look for it elsewhere. That's how the search has changed to mobile. And so the other part of that is that we are seeing that those that are doing searches on mobile devices will go to those businesses within 24 hours. Because if I'm out looking for something, that really means that my urgency is now. And so I want to have that fulfilled. 88% of those that are searching will go call or go to that business. You can see that in your Google My Business data. You can see that in your activities that happen in your local stores and in services. And we're also seeing that people are more and more willing to share their locations. That concern for privacy seems to drop. 62% of adults under 34 are willing to share their location in order to get relevant content. The relevancy to them is more important than the privacy piece. And so it's important to consider, and we need to deliver that information in a streamlined way. So this is also a couple of great stats that we've seen is that when on the go, the majority of smartphone searches have that local intent. And one thing to keep in mind is that, as we're saying, 56% have local intent, and in-store, 51% have local intent. Perhaps they're shopping or browsing for the best options, but they're not always doing things in the traditional fashion. So I want to go back to the comment on voice search. And I think that it's very important for everyone to realize that one of the key things here is that the ultimate personalization is localization. And so part of this has to do with, Rio specializes in local. That's what we do. Locator pages, SEO, mobile, social, all of that. But as we're starting to see voice search take off, this really becomes a lot about the phrases and things that people are looking for in their local market. And it may not be your brand. Unbranded keywords become more and more important as we move into a voice search space. And as people are also moving more and more towards mobile, they may not be thinking of your store specifically for finding your location, but maybe they're looking for dog groomers, not Petco. Maybe they're looking for school uniforms, not Old Navy. Maybe they're looking for party supplies and balloons, not Party City. But you need to be found if you're that brand. And so that really, when someone is looking for things in their local market, those are the key pieces that we really need to think about. And you have to find ways to do that at scale. There's a lot of data that takes into account, but you need to be able to deliver that simply to the consumer. So let me give you a couple examples of how we've seen that done in the marketplace. So the obvious one, as Mary was saying earlier, is that you absolutely must have local landing pages for each store. That is sort of the step one. Be sure that you have this so you can easily find relevant pages for your location. Get rankings in your search, and be sure that you can actually help to convert people to that local store. Again, if they're looking for your brand and they're definitely going to find you, you got to be found. And so that's the obvious piece. But that's only a certain percentage of the space. What we really have to be thinking about then is how do you engage relevant local content that will attract people to your store, to your service, to your organization. And so it's very important that you take these pages and incorporate local specific content. So how do you showcase attractions that are going on nearby if you're maybe in hospitality or entertainment? How do you highlight services that your companies offer specifically in that location? The diversity of what happens location to location is actually attractive to a mobile consumer, and they want that level of granularity. How do you incorporate local events and promotions and social media to engage visitors to that specific location? You know, people are using social media to search, and they want to be sure to find your brand, your location specifically where they are. And how do you work that back into your landing pages? And how do you drive in-store inventory and products to help drive conversions? This is an example we're showing of Kohl's. They've recently added in-store inventory and promotions to help drive more conversions to their pages, and it's working well. Other examples would be user-generated content, specifically to the location. So one of the ways is, this challenge of how do you engage local content. Let's say you're a brand manager sitting back at the corporate office. You have to be able to tap into your local resources. That means the store manager. That also means the consumer that's in that store. And a great way to do that is through reviews. User reviews, comments, and integration is a great way to get real, genuine, unscripted content that's diverse by location. The example I have here is that Petco is doing this for their grooming and for services that they offer within their brand. And you're going to get a very genuine user-based story when they tell you how their shopping experience was when they took their dog in to get groomed, right? They're going to share the positives, and that's a great way to be found with localized content. Allows you to really integrate that into your pages and have on-page elements to control what your consumers and customers are interacting with. We also have ways that you can integrate store manager content into that local page, not just variables like holiday hours and key things that change quickly locally, but also events and promotions and things that might be held at that individual store. Really helpful when you have a franchise enterprise or ways that you have diverse store locations that are doing different things to their local market. So it's a great way to increase user interaction at the local level, which at the end of the day is going to drive more local traffic to your local locations and services, and you can do that through content. And just to give you some data proof is that, we've been doing this with Petco, and one of the stats recently is they saw a 42% lift in search volume across their stores once we started going in and driving some of this location data and optimize it properly. It's very important that you take the best advantage you can for your locations, not just your brand, but all those great unbranded words about your business that consumer might be looking for to find you. And that's really when it comes to personalizing content, it's about solving a need. And so it's not just these are the things I know about you, but these are the things you're looking for, and I'm going to deliver it to you quickly and efficiently and right at your fingertips. And as you do that, that really is what we've seen been the best way to maximize your local experience for your local consumers. And with that, Karen, I'll pass it back to you.
Great. Thanks, Cynthia. Thank you to all three of our speakers. We have heard a lot of great content today, and I see a few questions in our queue, so I want to get right to them so that we have time to answer the things that our audience wants to know more about. So here's one. Brandon, I'm gonna have you start with this because this sounds like we're a nationwide brand, a firm player in the market with a new website. We've done many things to improve local, but we're still getting beaten by very small businesses without any effort going into SEO. Any tips? So, Brandon, I'll let you start, and then Mary or Cynthia, if you want to chime in, you can.
Yep. Yeah, what I would start with is just looking at your content. Content is really kind of a critical piece, and it's not just quality content, but it can also come down to the way that you're presenting that, the format, the order. I'm aware of a situation where a company had great content on their website, but they placed it pretty far down the page, and they had a lot of content far above that sort of looked the same across all their pages, and they actually kind of experienced what you're describing, and come to find out, we just assumed that Google reads the whole page, but I think after a while they probably stopped, and they kind of look like duplicate pages. So you could look at that. Other things that you may want to look at are your backlink profile versus theirs, the authority of your pages, and going back to Mary's slides, look at your internal link structure to make sure that you're actually passing traffic into those pages. So those would be kind of my top areas to look at. And then from there, you'll have a better idea of kind of maybe ways to experiment and, give it a little bit of time.
Ladies, anybody have anything to add, Cynthia or Mary?
I think that a lot of SEO agencies have lower expectations for ranking in local search than they do in organic search, and that's really not the case. These days, in order to get into that coveted local pack, you really need to rank that particular page needs to rank well organically, and it needs to rank well in Google Maps. And I would say, kind of building on what Brandon said, is I would really go back to my basic SEO and make sure that the pages that I am expecting to rank well in local search are ranking well in organic search, and that they're also ranking well inside Google Maps, because a lot of people are they're using Google Maps even when they don't know it. They're using it through an API in an application, or their phone is taking them directly into Google Maps depending on its settings. So I would definitely look at the SEO side of things.
Yes, I completely agree with Mary on the Google Map piece of it as well. That tends to be one that gets overlooked, and yet it's becoming so prominent in its default use, and it's driving a lot of other indicators. So don't just look at rankings organically, but be sure to put that in and run against those competitors that you're getting outranked from, those very small businesses, and take a look. See if you can find out what's going on with their pages that might be helping. But definitely focus in on mapping.
Great. Thank you for all three of you. Okay, this next question kind of dovetails on what we were just talking about. Mary, I'm going to ask you to answer it first. How do we evaluate the quality of our content? So we've talked a lot about having high quality content. What are some tips for this audience member about how they can know if their content is any good or not?
Well, the Google Search Quality Evaluator Guidelines, they used to kind of leak these to us every once in a while, but right around this time last year, they actually published these and pushed it out there so that everybody would know about these guidelines. And as I mentioned before, they're pretty boring, but once you find a nugget in there that applies to you, a light bulb will go off in your head. So I suggest that you set aside some time to look through these quality evaluator guidelines, and you will get some very clear guidance from Google as to exactly what they're looking for. But what they really want is they want the local expert to be providing localized content on their pages. And that's really what's going to benefit you with rankings.
Anyone want to add on to that? Brandon or Cynthia?
Well, I agree. Well,
go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I was going to say is I agree. You really just want to look at it kind of from their perspective, and then just make sure that if you were a consumer, you were reading it. Is it conveying the information that you're telling Google that you provide? And really kind of just looking at it from the kind of an outsider's perspective. Maybe even ask someone else to read it, see if it makes sense to them, see if they can interpret what you're actually trying to say.
Okay.
Yeah, Brandon, I agree with that statement.
Good. Thanks, Cynthia. Okay, let's keep moving. I want to see if we can get to one or two more. So any guide what to look for creating local content aside from using local statistics? Cynthia, maybe you want to start with that. I saw you had some good examples on some of your slides there of where to look for something localized.
Sure. I mean, it really depends on your business type, right? So If you're in healthcare, local content would look very different than if you were maybe a retail or a bank, something else. But statistics is an obvious one, but I would look to activities going on in the location and then things going around you in the community as well, if it's something that you can control. Retail is a great one to talk about promotions and things that would drive transactions, because you could talk about sales and promotions in that local store and possibly localize it. Any sort of events that you can do in local stores creates great urgency, right? So if you're looking at someone's locator and they say, hurry, something's going on in 2 hours, that would actually drive faster intent. Or promotions that have expiration points that they need to get into that store. Those are also great things for local content. But I'm actually, one of the simplest ones is user reviews. I have to say that that is such a great one in the local space, and if you can create triggers that encourage consumers to write reviews about the service they received or their shopping experience in that local store, so not national brand or product brand reviews, but local reviews, those are really easy ones to get user-generated content. And the user-generated content will help you prepare for voice search, because voice search, how people are searching is a little different than what they would type into a search engine traditionally. So that's one that I would say is also very attractive.
I'd also like to add that you want to use real local photos. And most of the photos that people can take on their cell phones these days are perfectly fine for web use. So there's really no excuse for your locations to not be able to provide you with real local photos. Google has some kind of statistic that about that real photos get something like 42% more clicks to their local business listings over stock photos. So think about using real photos, and a lot of times, especially for service area businesses that are providing services that go to the customer's location, let's say a carpet cleaning service, plumbers, home handyman. I've found that writing little project pages for these types of, for the types of work you do, can be really useful in helping you rank and also showing your customers what you're capable of doing and what the results of your work can look like. So let's say you went to your carpet cleaner and you went to someone's house and they had children and pets, stains everywhere. Talk about where you went, where you did the work, what you did, the materials you used, what the problems you were, the challenges that you had, what the finished result was like, a little testimonial from the person, the customer that's happy with that business, and then some optimized photos to go with it. You don't need very many pages on your site that talk about these types of projects before you'll start ranking for all kinds of long-tail terms that will help to bring you more prospects. And this is exactly the type of content that a searcher is interested in seeing when they're getting ready to have their house painted or their carpet cleaned or their roof replaced.
I will point out on that.
Oh, go ahead. Brandon, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and for those that are hearing these ideas but still kind of wondering, like, how do I start? How do I begin? How do I get those reviews? And how do I turn that into relevant information? One suggestion is to create sort of like a poll, almost like an interview, list of just brief questions that you can ask. One of the things that we've talked about doing is looking at opportunities to just sort of, interview customers, brief question and answers, and then take that back to your copywriting team, and you can develop a story out of that without taking a lot of time from them, but then you're definitely leveraging that local review feedback, but turning it into more long-form information that, kind of speaks to different areas of problems that you solve.
Great. Well, Thank you, audience, for those questions. I just want to, I am going to wrap it up because that is all the time we have for today. I want to let you know that if you did not get your questions answered, we do send all of our audience questions to our sponsor, Rio SEO, so you will get your questions answered even if we weren't able to get to them here live on the air. I want to thank Mary, Brandon, and Cynthia for a very informative and timely presentation. And I want to thank you, our audience, for some great questions. A special thanks to our sponsor, Rio SEO, who you can visit at www.rioseo.com. That's all for our broadcast today. We look forward to seeing you next time, right here at Digital Marketing Depot.